in the heart of Lagos, beneath the noise of the danfos and the chaos of market women shouting over tomatoes, a man sat on a plastic chair outside his house every morning, blind cane in hand, dark shades over his eyes, unmoving and silent. People called him Baba Ojo, the blind mechanic. But what they didn't know was that Baba Ojo could see everything. And what he saw was slowly killing him inside. This isn't just a story about infidelity. It's about the thin line between love and betrayal, about how far one man will go to find the truth, and whether knowing the truth is ever worth the cost. Ojo Adewale was once the proud owner of a thriving car repair shop in Surulere. Hardworking, honest, and deeply in love with his beautiful wife, Adesuwa, whom he married against his mother's wishes. Adesuwa was different, modern, stunning, and articulate, a secondary school teacher with the charm to silence a room and the confidence of someone who knew their worth. For 10 years, their marriage appeared peaceful. They had a daughter together, Tenny, now 7, with her mother's eyes and her father's quiet nature. But as years went by, Ojo began to sense something off. Adesuwa became distant, not physically, but emotionally. The way she flinched when he touched her. The phone calls she took in whispers. The perfume that lingered too long. She said it was work stress. He wanted to believe her. But one night changed everything. It was a rainy Thursday evening. Ojo had returned from the shop early to surprise Adesuwa. He entered through the back door and overheard her talking on the phone. "No, he's still blind. He'll never know. You're the only one I see, baby." Ojo's hands trembled. Blind? He wasn't blind. The lie had started a year ago when Ojo had suffered a minor accident at the workshop, a grease splash that momentarily blurred his vision. Doctors had said it would heal in weeks. But in those few weeks, he saw something he wasn't supposed to, a text message on Adesuwa's phone that said, "Last night was magical. I miss you already." He confronted her then. She cried, claimed it was a prank by a colleague, swore on Tenny's head. Ojo wanted to believe her so badly that he buried his doubts. But when she whispered he's still blind, something inside him snapped. Ojo made a choice that night, to pretend to be blind, to truly see. He sold the workshop quietly and told everyone he was too blind to continue. People came to sympathize. The pastor came to pray. Neighbors brought food. Adesuwa cried crocodile tears and told everyone how strong she had to be now that her husband was useless. But behind the glasses, Ojo saw it all. He started taking notes, watching patterns. Every Tuesday afternoon, Adesuwa would wear her best dress, spray that honey jasmine perfume, and leave 4 extra classes. She wouldn't return until dusk. Ojo, with the help of a trusted childhood friend named Ibuka, started tailing her. Ibuka would act as the guide, holding his arm in public like helping a blind man cross. But in reality, Ibuka was his eyes in unfamiliar places. They followed Adesuwa to a guest house on Ogudu Road. Room 105. She wasn't alone. Through a small creak in the window, Ojo saw her in the arms of another man. The betrayal burned deeper than any wound he'd ever endured. But he didn't cry. Not yet. He needed to know more. He needed to know why. For weeks, Ojo played the blind husband role perfectly. He'd sit outside, cane in hand, nodding as Adesuwa lied through her teeth. Then one evening, she asked an unusual question. "Baba Tenny," she said sweetly, "what if we moved to Benin? Fresh start. New environment. Good for Tenny, no?" Ojo knew immediately what she was plotting. Benin was the last piece. She wanted to relocate him where no one knew him. Where she could fully control the narrative, play the doting wife, and keep her secret lover even closer. He kept quiet. But that night, he opened a hidden compartment in the wardrobe and brought out an old phone. The next morning, Ibuka helped him install a hidden camera in the living room. He set up a voice-activated recorder in their bedroom. Then, he waited. Days passed. One Sunday morning, while he was asleep, he heard the man in their house. He stayed still as the lover entered the bedroom, and they laughed about how stupid and blind her husband was. Adesewa even joked that if she had known it was this easy to fool a man, she would have started earlier. That night, Ojo didn't sleep. He sat in the dark, eyes open, a storm raging inside him. He waited for the perfect moment. A week later, he invited their extended family to the house, both hers and his. Told them it was a thank you gathering for supporting them through his blindness. Adesewa, ever the actress, wore her best lace and played the role of a humble wife, thanking everyone for their prayers. Just before the jollof rice was served, Ojo stood up shakily, cane in hand, glasses on. "I have something to say," he said in a quiet voice. Everyone went silent. "I have been living in darkness, not because I couldn't see, but because I chose not to." He removed his glasses. Gasps echoed around the room. "I'm not blind. I never was." The room froze. Adesewa laughed nervously. "Ah, Ojo. What are you saying?" Ojo raised his hand, silencing her. "I saw everything. The guest house. The man. The bedroom." He brought out the USB stick and inserted it into the TV. The room filled with sounds, her laughter, her betrayal, the man's voice. By the time the video ended, Adesewa was on her knees, wailing, claiming she was bewitched, manipulated, lonely. But Ojo didn't flinch. "I pretended to be blind, to see who you truly are." The days that followed were filled with scandal. Neighbors talked. Her family begged. Ojo filed for divorce. Adesewa lost her job after the recordings leaked. The man she cheated with vanished. And Tenny, poor Tenny, had to grow up fast. Ojo made sure she was shielded as much as possible. He never spoke ill of her mother, only said, "Some truths are too heavy for young shoulders." Years later, when Tenny asked why he did it, why he didn't just walk away, Ojo answered quietly. "Because sometimes, the most dangerous kind of blindness is trusting someone too much." Weeks turned into months, and the dust of the scandal finally began to settle. Adesewa moved out of the house, humiliated and broken. Her once glowing pride had been shattered by the very man she mocked. Ojo, on the other hand, was learning to breathe again, not with joy, but with the heavy sighs of a man who had uncovered the truth at great emotional cost. He didn't smile more. He didn't celebrate. There was no pleasure in being right. Because when trust dies, even justice tastes bitter. People in the neighborhood, who once envied their marriage, now treated Ojo with solemn respect. Some whispered in pity, others in admiration. A few said he should have just sent her away quietly. But Ojo didn't expose her to shame her. He exposed her to free himself. Adesewa didn't take the disgrace well. She tried to turn the tables by going on social media to claim Ojo had been emotionally abusive, controlling, and paranoid. She spun stories, painted herself as a misunderstood woman, and garnered sympathy from strangers online. But the truth had already rooted itself in the minds of those who mattered. The video and voice recordings had been enough. Her digital tantrums were nothing more than the dying screams of a prideful woman unraveling. Ojo didn't respond to her attacks. Ojo didn't respond to her attacks. Instead, he focused on his daughter. Tenny was the only reason Ojo hadn't sunk into depression. Her small hands in his, her innocent questions, her quiet hugs, they were his lifeline. He began repairing cars again, this time from his compound. Friends brought their vehicles, and slowly, his income returned. He didn't need much, only enough to send Tenny to a decent school and put food on the table. He became a man of few words, calm, measured, and guarded. But beneath that calm was a fire that never truly went out. Not hatred. Wisdom. The kind that comes from pain. One evening, as Ojo closed the gate, he saw Adesewa standing outside with a small bag in hand. She looked thinner, worn out, her eyes tired from regret and sleepless nights. "I just want to see Tenny," she said, voice trembling. Ojo studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "She's inside. But don't lie to her." Adesewa met her daughter, hugged her tightly, and wept without words. Ojo watched from a distance, his heart torn. She had betrayed him. But she was still Tenny's mother. Forgiveness didn't come easy. And maybe it never would. But understanding, that was something he could offer. As the sun dipped below the rooftops of Surulere, Ojo stood in silence, watching the two people he loved the most share a moment he could no longer be part of. Because sometimes, when you uncover the truth, you lose more than you gain. And the real blindness is what we choose not to see when love blinds us. Time moved on, but wounds remained. Co-parenting with Adesewa became a delicate task, like walking barefoot over broken glass. Ojo never insulted her in front of Tenny. He made sure the little girl didn't grow up with hate in her heart. But he also never allowed Adesewa too close. Trust, once shattered, is like a cracked mirror. Even when pieced together, the reflection is never the same. Adesewa tried to make amends. She offered to support Tenny financially, helped with homework during her weekly visits, and even attended PTA meetings. But she could see it in Ojo's eyes, that deep silence. Not rage. Just absence. The kind of silence that says, "You don't live here anymore, not even in my mind." One evening, as Tenny and Ojo were preparing dinner, the little girl looked up and asked softly, "Daddy, why don't you love Mummy anymore?" The question struck him harder than any betrayal. He crouched beside her and replied, "I do, in a different way now. But sometimes, when someone hurts you too much, you have to protect your heart. Do you understand?" Tenny nodded slowly, then hugged him tightly. Ojo didn't cry. He hadn't shed a tear throughout the entire ordeal. But that night, after she slept, he sat alone on the veranda and wept silently into his hands, not because he missed Adesewa, but because love had cost him everything, and yet he still loved his daughter more than life itself. A year later, Ojo's workshop officially reopened in a rented space not far from his home. Business grew steadily, and so did his reputation, not just as a skilled mechanic, but as a man of rare patience and integrity. He never remarried. He never dated. Not because he couldn't, but because he didn't want to make love a battlefield again. He learned to live in peace with solitude, and to find joy in the simple things: Tenny's laughter, the smell of engine oil, the quiet moments at dusk. And as for Adesewa, she eventually moved to a neighboring town where she took a job at a private school. She never remarried either. She sent cards on Tenny's birthdays. She tried to make peace. But some things, once broken, remain sacred in their silence. One Sunday afternoon, an old friend asked Ojo if he regretted pretending to be blind, if it was worth it. Ojo took a long breath and replied, "It cost me everything I thought I had. But it gave me everything I needed to know. If I hadn't gone blind, I would have remained blind." The friend was silent. And Ojo, with the sun casting long shadows on the ground, smiled for the first time in years, a quiet, tired, but honest smile. Sometimes, pretending to be blind is the only way to truly open your eyes. And in love, as in life, seeing the truth, no matter how painful, is better than living in a beautiful lie.